North of Waterdeep, the land is cold, vast, and foreboding. The Trackless Sea stretches northward for what seems like forever, interrupted only by the occasional island and eventually the ice. On land, towns and villages flourish right up to the spine of the world mountains. It takes a special kind of person to live up here, a determined person used to hardship, a survivor, a person with a great love for life and a great respect for the forces, both natural and unnatural, that can bring that life to a quick and horrible end. FR5, The Savage Frontier, is the first supplement to take a detailed look at this inhospitable region of the Forgotten Realms. Here you can learn about the Uthgardt Barbarians and the vile evils that inhabited the dark dungeons of this realm. This is the land where the 10 towns of the Icewind Dale trilogy reside, and of course, Dritz Do'Urden and Brunnar Battlehammer. Coming right up on RPG Retro Reviews. Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous, and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm taking a look at a classic and very well done supplement from TSR, FR5 The Savage Frontier. This 64-page supplement details the lands and peoples of that region of the Forgotten Realms north of the City of Splendors, Waterdeep. Much of the classic lore of this setting is based in this small region, with R.A. Salvatore's beloved Icewind Dale trilogy setting the standard for what an epic Forgotten Realms story could be. Savage Frontier has captured the imagination of Dungeons & Dragons players for decades, and while other editions of the game and other supplements would follow, this is the supplement that laid the groundwork for everything that came after. Released in 1988 on the heels of the Icewind Dale trilogy's first novel, The Crystal Shard, and about a year after FR1 Waterdeep in the North touched very lightly on the region, this supplement was written by Janelle Jacques, a freelance writer already well established with her excellent work with the Judges Guild. Jacques used material from several earlier works, The Enchanted Wood, an SBI Wilderness adventure, and Griffin Mountain, a 1981 adventure for the RuneQuest RPG, which Jacques contributed a new set of distinctive barbarian tribes to the setting. Finally, there was Egg of the Phoenix, a 1987 adventure co-written with Frank Menzer, which included several memorable NPCs. This, combined with Ed Greenwood's past writings on the region and what R.A. Salvatore had added with his Icewind Dale trilogy, and you have the basis for much of this supplement's content. Other supplements followed, such as Volo's Guide to the North and several classic adventures as well, set in the Hellgate Keep area, the Accursed Tower, and the Dungeon of Death. Also found here are the first attempt to provide some statistics for Dritz Do'Urden and the Companions of the Hall, Brunnar Battlehammer, the Halfling Regis, and Wolfgar. Catti-brie is notably absent from this NPC list. But what is the Savage Frontier, or the North as it's often referred to? For this supplement, the North refers to the lands north of the City of Waterdeep between the Sword Coast and the islands of the Trackless Sea. The lands are characterized by rugged, heavy woodlands and a climate of cool midsummers and harsh, brutal winters. Civilized regions hug the coast and a few inland river valleys. The rest is the domain of orcs, barbarian tribes, trolls, and all kinds of monstrous denizens. It is also a land of rich mineral wealth, unequaled anywhere in Faerun. This is also a land of rich history spanning back well before ancient Netheril reached its prominence. Its beginnings span as far back as before the elves were civilized enough to record history, when the lands were far warmer and dominated by cruel lizard, amphibian, and avian peoples. This time is known as the Days of Thunder, and the peoples that lived then are what the elves call the Iquatel Quasar, or creator races. However, it was not war that brought about the end of these creatures' rule, but change in the climate. While not exactly known, some cataclysm befell these races, most likely brought about by themselves. In any event, the creator races passed into the mists of history, and for a time dragons rose to rule the north. But they too eventually faded, and this allowed for the rise of the elves and the dwarves. Arriving on the northern shores from a far-off elven land of Evermeet, the elves established the strongholds of Ilfarn and Irelune. Farther north, the dwarves established the nation of Delzoun. To the east lay the narrow sea, and here along its sandy shores, human fishing villages grew into small towns and then ultimately joined together to form the nation of Netheril. Some say that these villages were united by a powerful mage who had discovered ancient magics that went all the way back to the Days of Thunder, a book that the legends now refer to as the Nether Scrolls. Under this nameless wizard, Netheril grew into a powerful nation. Netherese wizards floated entire cities on inverted mountains and dominated the north for 3,000 years. Doom came to the Netherese in two phases, as desert devoured the narrow sea and the Netherese wizards abandoned their lands. The dwarven kingdom of Delzoun fell into hard days, and that's when the orcs came. Erupting from their cavern dwellings in the spine of the world, they ravaged the gray peaks, the dwarf holds in the high mountains, and the boughs of the high moon mountains. Under this onslaught, Delzoun's realm was reduced to rubble. Without their wizards for protection, the remaining Netherese lands were wiped from the face of history. Only the elves of Irelune withstood the onslaught. With the aid of treants of Tarlang and other allies, managed to stave off the destructions of their lands for a few centuries more. In the centuries that followed, Irelune also fell to demons from Hellgate Keep and another orcish horde. The Netherese refugees and dwarven survivors would go on to form what would later be known as the Fallen Kingdoms, though it too was short-lived and collapsed under the next orc invasion. However, its death also dealt the goblin races a blow from which they have yet to recover. Along the coast where elven Ilfarn once dwelt, humanity rose in power, and this saw the rise of the city of Waterdeep, Silvery Moon, and the lands of the north that men now call home. From the ashes of orc invasions, the destructions of Netheril, and other influences, nomadic tribesmen known as the Uthgard now roam the vast cold wastes, eking out a living, hunting and foraging, and warring with each other. Thus humans, elves, dwarves still occupy the savage northern realms, but elves and dwarves are greatly diminished, with humans as the dominant race, though the background and culture varies widely due to the vast migration of peoples from all over Faerun. Elves here now generally are wanderers, and only two dwarven cities continue to exist, Ironmaster in the west and Citadel Adbar in the east. Halflings are a rarity, however, as 4 or 5 months of fierce winter isn't all that appealing to the hare-footed people who prefer good meals, a stout drink, and good lands for farming and gardening. Of course, what brings many to these harsh lands is the rich resources that are readily available for the taking for those sturdy enough to brave the risks and exploit them. Mining iron and gold, agriculture, cattle herding, farming, and due to the vast amount of ready lumber, shipbuilding are all major industries in the north. This, of course, opens up vast trade routes between the various communities, and in turn, this requires a healthy military, or at least hired adventurers to guard and secure these trade routes against those who would take what others have worked so hard to manufacture. Much of the economy of the north is based off of exports from shipping along the Sword Coast to overland routes that crisscross through the north itself to southern places such as Baldur's Gate. The north sports quite a number of organizations. The Captain's Confederation, based in the city of Luskan, is composed of brutal Northmen sailors who raid all along the Sword Coast. Most well known is probably the Harpers, who have a major presence here. Kelvin Blackstaff Aronson of Waterdeep and High Lady Illustrial of Silvery Moon are two of its most powerful members. Once a loose society of bards and rangers created to provide wanderers with fellowship and shelter, it has significantly grown and acts to maintain peace in this untamed wild land they have come to love. Harpers rarely work openly and reveal their true goals to few, and those who work crossways to their purpose can occasionally run afoul of them. Thus, even those who are not their enemies harbor a mild distrust of the Harpers. Of course, also well known throughout the North is the stronghold of Hellgate Keep, and its evil influence permeates the region, as agents from this abyssal-ruled fortress are constantly seeking to expand their domain and acquire powerful magic items. The leader, a demon named Grinthark, and his followers are all exiles from the Abyss, and fortunately this limits their power somewhat. There are the Ice Mountain Orcs ruled by King Grawl. It is said up to 100,000 orcs fall under his sway, including those in the Citadel of Many Arrows and the Ice Mountain Frost Giants. Also worth mentioning is the Lord's Alliance, or the Council of Lords. Lawful and essentially good, it is an alliance of the northern independent cities of Waterdeep, Marabar, Neverwinter, Silvery Moon, Sundabar, and the island realms of Gundaloom. The Lord's Alliance also includes the southern cities of Baldur's Gate, El Turel, Burdusk, and Erebor, and quite a number of smaller towns and villages. The goal is mutual protection against incursion from hostile forces such as those from Zentil Keep. The role of deities in a campaign is also an important factor for many player characters, as well as seeding the flavor of the setting. This is especially true in regards to the Uthgardt Barbarians, whose harsh living conditions set the tone of their beliefs. Tempest, the god of battle, is of course a favorite among the barbarian tribes of the north, but they also worship beast totems, minor demigods who take their names and forms from creatures of the northern wildlands. Thus, you have clan cults such as the Sky Pony, Blue Bear, Great Worm, Elk, Grey Wolf, Red Tiger, Snowcat, Black Lion, Thunder Beast, and so on. In addition, the orcs also worship their own deity, Grumpsh, One Eye, as well as a few others. They too have their own tribes and clans, such as the Severed Hand, Bloody Eye, and the Skull Grin. On page 12 of this supplement, a very handy chart is provided that outlines the various deific powers of the North, where shrines and temples might be located, the locations where they are most prevalent, and the names of their clergy. Of course, in a land such as this, the climate and weather also play a major part of the lives for everyone. And when running a campaign here, it is even more important. Thus, this supplement spends a goodly portion of its page count detailing the effects of weather and the types of conditions that adventurers might face on their journeys. This is especially true in areas such as Icewind Dale, where harsh winters can send temperatures as low as minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Thus, in addition to a myriad of threats such as hostile barbarians, orcs, demons, wild beasts, and monsters, adventurers in these lands must also confront another cruel, heartless, and deadly enemy, the weather. Rather than give specific random encounter table lists, the Savage Frontier merely provides creatures and folk common to the north in the area descriptions of each section. Thus, the DM can simply choose who and what the player characters come across as they traverse these dangerous lands. To make things easy, the northern terrain is broken down into types such as clear, forest, high forest, hill, island, the Mirror of Dead Men, mountains, and sea encounters, and lists creatures that would be found there, such as in the Mirror of Dead Men. One might encounter mysterious shamans, bands of bullywugs, will-o-wisps, and the frustrating presence of pecking and biting insects. From these lists, the DM can just choose what is discovered or make up their own random encounter tables if they so choose. On page 17, a really excellent overview on unusual encounters is provided, which can be the springboard for many adventures and also inspire the DM to create their own unique Northern Frontier style encounters. The Peoples chapter goes into the minutiae of the various cultures and types to be commonly found in this region. The Northmen are seafarers and very closely resemble the Scandinavian Vikings of actual history who raid the coast in their longships, more commonly referred to as dragon ships. The dark-haired Uthgardt, conversely, resemble the more fantastic styles of barbarians such as the Cimmerians from Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian stories, with some embellishments, of course. In any event, this supplement gives quite a bit of information on their history, their culture, and attitudes, such as their skill and love of battle, their disdain for civilization and magic, and the gods they worship. Of the two types of barbarians, the Uthgardt most commonly resemble the barbarian character class as laid out originally in the Unearthed Arcana supplement. They are a mix of Netherese refugees and other tribes and people of that region. Here, spells, powers, and rituals used by the Uthgardt shaman is explained, as well as how each tribe manifests their totem uniquely, who the tribal leaders are, their shamans, their traditional enemy tribe, and what their beast power might be. Of course, since the first book of the Icewind Dale trilogy, The Crystal Shard, was published around the same time as this supplement, the tribes of Icewind Dale are also discussed. While the bulk of the People's chapter is dedicated to the barbarians, other cultures are given significant coverage as well, such as the dwarves of Citadel Adbar. Of course, if you are familiar with R.A. Salvatore's excellent trilogy, then you know that Brunar Battlehammer, Dritz Duerden, Brunar's adopted daughter Catti-brie, and son Wulfgar would go on to establish the dwarven stronghold of Mithril Hall. Sprinkled in with many of the descriptions are adventure seeds and game information about each, tidbits such as the levels of Lizardman Shaman in the Mirror of Dead Men, the quality of armor and weapons of dwarves from Adbar and Ironmaster, and so on. I think the cities, towns, and village chapter is my favorite part of this book. The many locations described here would be greatly fleshed out in later supplements, and certainly if anything catches your fancy here, it is easy to Google search to uncover more up-to-date information or even maps for certain locations. If you have been playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons and you have the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, this chapter will absolutely fill out many parts that were neglected in that supplement or weren't even mentioned at all. For example, the Barge Rite Inn. Not a single tavern, but a series of businesses that have grown on the banks of the river Desarin along the Iron Ford to serve the needs of travelers and farmers who roam there. Think of it as a fantasy version of a modern-day travel plaza. This location would get a mention and even a map in the 5e adventure Princes of the Apocalypse. Other important locations included are the dwarven realms of Citadel, Adbar, and Ironmaster, the seafaring city of Luskan, a haven for pirates and rogues, the cities of Neverwinter, Silvery Moon, and Waterdeep. Silvery Moon even gets a keyed map in this supplement, which is definitely worth checking out. Of course, a lot of fans of the Icewind Dale trilogy would have been interested in the information on 10 towns, though I don't think what was provided, was as comprehensive as what we wanted when this supplement came out. There is a small regional map of the area on the large poster map. If you're a fan of the novels and are interested in the area, the 5e adventure Rime of the Frost Maiden did a decent job of covering a few of the towns, and there also seems to be a decent looking supplement on the DM's Guild that looks interesting called 10 Towns Expanded. I don't have it, but if anyone else does, please let us know in the comments what you think of it. In the next chapter, the sea, the ice, and the islands, various coastal locales by the sea are given, and a very handy chart with types of sea vessels to be found in the north as well. Most of this kind of information will still be quite handy whether you're playing a modern D&D game or an OSR game. On the large poster map, one can find several islands. The Ice Peak, the Purple Rocks, Rorin, and the Whalebones provide bases of operations and havens for pirate raiders. The Northmen along the Sword Coast. The listings include names of the leaders, the forms of government, population, the primary source of income, which doesn't all include raiding and piracy. For example, the Whalebones is a small group of petty kings, each ruling over a small island in the chain. There are about 50 such islands. Whaling, fishing, and farming, in addition to raiding, sustain the chain. Of course, the Savage North is a land of mystery and lost civilizations, and in the Lost Lands, Stronghold, and Ruins chapter, the supplement touches on just that. If you want to explore the ruins of Netheril and the Fallen Kingdoms, this is where you'll find them. Some of the more famous dungeons and ruins of the Savage North include the infamous Dungeon of Death, a ruined dwarf hold said to be cursed, demanding a toll of blood and lives from those who would seek to pry at its secrets. This is one of those dungeons that became a supplement for 2E in the year 2000, one of the last supplements for that edition before Wizards of the Coast transitioned to 3rd edition Dungeons & Dragons. It's a bit expensive to purchase on eBay, but the PDF is a very good scan and available at Drive-Thru RPG for just $4.99. A link is in the description. The Hall of the Four Ghosts, another ruined dwarf hold, taking its name from the single remaining above-ground structure. The current residents are said to be trolls and other unsavory beasties, and the tunnels below are said to go on for miles beneath the western high forest. Lest we forget the eponymous Hellgate Keep, the ruins of a would-be Netherese reborn city or a second Myth-Janor. Aspiring to greatness, the wizards within only managed their own doom when they opened a gate to the Nine Hells, seeking aid from the powers there, and to their dismay, received it. Now ruled by a Type 6 demon named Grinthark, its forces led by a Death Knight. They have led attacks against other strongholds in the north, such as Citadel Adbar, Dundabar, and even Silverymoon. For now, the forces of good have held back forces of evil, but for how long? In 1998, TSR released the Hellgate Keep adventure as part of its Dungeon Crawl series. That module is currently available as a print-on-demand PDF for only $10.50. If you're interested and want to help this channel out, I've included an affiliate link in the description. Other important ruins and places worth mentioning are the Lonely Tower, the Mines of Marabar, and of course the legendary Mithril Hall, the ancestral home of Brunar Battlehammer. The final chapters in this supplement cover the vast geography of the place, Dead Orc Pass, the Evermoors or the Trollmoors, the Ice Mountains, Icewind Dale, Mirror of Dead Man, and more, far too numerous to mention here. The mysterious High Forest gets its very own chapter detailing what secrets lie within. This vast 500-mile stretch of forest is the dominant feature of the savage frontier. Riches from ancient kingdoms, liches, lost castle, deep caverns, and even an entrance to the legend city of the Drow, Menzoberranzan, is said to be hidden in this vast forest. Deadly weather of a magical nature and a litany of evil creatures within makes exploring this untouched wilderness a daunting task for even the most experienced of adventurers. The burial mound of the Uthgard Barbarians are also given special coverage here. Baruna's Well, the Grandfather Tree, the Great Worm Cavern, Raven Rock are among the holy places revered by the enigmatic peoples of the north. The final chapter delves into the personalities of this ancient land. Powerful wizards, clerics, and wanderers get backgrounds and statistics, though the statistics are really bare bones, leaving much for the DM to fill in the specifics. Many of these NPCs are pulled directly from the pages of Forgotten Realms novels, specifically the Icewind Dale trilogy. All the companions of the Hall except Catti-brie are covered here, including Dritz Duerden, who is a 10th level ranger in this write-up. Of course, more detail would be given in the later supplement, the Hall of Heroes, which I will definitely be covering in a future video. Appendices for this supplement include magic items such as Delzun's Fist, the Nethril Scrolls, and the Tome of the 12 Seals. The magic items themselves are simply described. It is left to the DM to provide the game effects. Of course, the Nethril Scrolls are certainly the most coveted of magic items to those who know what they are supposed to be, the foundation of Netherese power and secret magic abilities that have long since been lost. There is a list of non-weapon proficiencies and a host of news and rumors to help provide adventure seeds to inspire prospective DMs as well as actual adventure hooks. Appendix C's list of rumors is certainly interesting from an historical perspective, though a DM could absolutely modify some of these to be used in the current timeline, or if they are playing in the original timeline, use them as is. Things such as the sack of 10 towns by a mad wizard from Luskan, and how the towns were saved by a dwarf, halfling, a barbarian, and a drow, of all things, are pretty funny to read, and how incredible. Lord Paragon of Waterdeep announcing the end of the Rhythm Luskan War also stirs some deep memories of playing in the Forgotten Realms at this time for me. If you've never played in this setting, these are all gems for possible adventures your DM can take advantage of. The cartography in this supplement is by David Sutherland, David Koth, and Janelle Jacques. The outstanding cover art is by Larry Elmore, with interior art by Esteban Morodo. Before I get into the D20 evaluation of this supplement, let me take a moment to comment on the PDF and print-on-demand copy that I received from DriveThruRPG. Early scans of this supplement were notably terrible due to the parchment paper style used in the original publication being very difficult to transfer to low-res PDFs of the time. I'm very pleased to say that the scan here wonderfully retains that parchment look and is absolutely gorgeous. The print-on-demand copy likewise looks great and is a near perfect reproduction. Of course, the poster map is integrated into the book, but it's done well and is actually quite usable as a reference. So let's go ahead and take a look at FR5, The Savage Frontier, on my D20 scale of style, presentation, and value. The style here is late 80s trade dress, and I love the parchment paper printing, and the cover art from Larry Elmore is iconic. The interior artwork is fine and really only presented as headings for each new chapter. Morodo's work here is mostly functional, and some of these pieces, such as those for the High Forest and the Uthgard Ancestor Mound chapters, is quite inspirational. The cartography is also quite good and will definitely come in handy during actual play. Certain things on the print-on-demand copy, such as the map to Silvery Moon and 10 Towns, are a bit too small to be very useful, but fortunately the PDF is of high enough resolution that you can copy and paste to create your own larger maps, or better yet, just go online and get one that someone has done with modern map-making software. I'll rate this a 16. The presentation here is very functional, though in many cases comes off a bit dry. However, as a guide for the DM to run a campaign in this setting, it is invaluable and extremely well done. This is some of Jacque's best work in my opinion, and while some might suggest this work is a bit thin considering the area to be covered, the 3-column pages are very text-dense, and they do manage to pack a lot of information into its 64 pages. Of course, this is set in the Year of Shadows, 1358 Dale Reckoning, but even if you are running this in the current era timeline of 1495, much of what's presented here will prove extremely useful. It's also a handy historical reference for those who are interested in such things. I'm going to rate this an 18. Finally, let's talk value, and in that regards, I'm going to rate this based on the quality of the PDF and the print-on-demand copy I received from DriveThruRPG for only $10.50. It's hard to argue with such value considering that when this was released back in 1988, it sold for $7.99. I remember picking this up at Walden Books back in the day, and I'm thrilled to have it back in my hands again. The print is crisp and high resolution, and you can see how good it looks here in these pictures. Bottom line, if this region of the Forgotten Realms is of interest to you and you don't already have it, you can't really go wrong here. This will be great at your table as a supplement to other resources, online or otherwise, that are currently available. And I'm going to give this my highest value rating, a natural 20 critical hit. And that brings this overall rating for Forgotten Realms, The Savage Frontier, to a 54. Very good. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this review helpful. Sorry about taking so long to get this to you. It's been a real journey trying to get this one completed with weddings and a variety of other things going on in my DJ business. But coming up, I definitely have some fun things that I've been working a bit piecemeal on and intermittently during this little hiatus, including the follow-up to this supplement, FR6, Dreams of the Red Wizards. The Hall of Heroes, this is definitely going to be a fun one and a stroll down memory lane. And I have a fun surprise coming for you in just a few days as well from Threshold Dice Works. So check back here for all my updates. Of course, I'd like to thank my patrons who continue to make this channel possible. Thank you all so much for your support. Please smash that like button, subscribe, and share. Please check out my Teespring store for some great Game On merchandise featuring artwork from James V. West and Phil Stone. Please join the channel's Facebook page, RPG Retro Reviews, and consider becoming a patron yourself. There are 2 ways to leave a tip if you are so inclined, either through my PayPal tip jar or through YouTube's Super Thanks. Its button is right here. As always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.